Many people believe that faith and science are like oil and water, that they don't mix. But what if I told you that a woman, centuries ago, proved exactly the opposite? Saint Zenaide was not only a saint, but a visionary doctor who challenged everything and everyone by combining knowledge and spirituality to transform lives. At a time when few had access to medicine, she not only treated the sick for free, but also challenged erroneous beliefs that kept people trapped in fear. Her story is not only about physical healing, but about hope, courage, and an unshakable trust in God. What makes someone become a true instrument of change? Zenaide lived in a time when being a woman, a doctor, and a Christian was practically a sentence of persecution. But she didn't back down. On the contrary, she moved forward. While many thought that illness was divine punishment, she saw an opportunity to demonstrate God's love in practice. Her knowledge saved lives, but it was her faith that healed souls. And it is precisely this faith that continues to resonate today, inspiring doctors, missionaries, and anyone who wants to serve others with wisdom and compassion. Now, imagine living with that same boldness. What if you could have that same confidence? What if your life could impact others the way hers did? Saint Zenaide not only changed the world around her, but she left a legacy that has spanned centuries. And best of all, this story is not over. It is still being written, and perhaps, without realizing it, you have a fundamental role in it. Saint Zenaide grew up in an environment where Jewish faith and tradition were part of everyday life. However, something extraordinary happened when her uncle, the Apostle Paul, underwent a radical transformation after meeting Jesus on the road to Damascus. Just imagine, a persecutor of Christians becoming one of the greatest preachers of the faith. This had a profound impact on Zenaide, awakening in her a genuine curiosity about this new message of hope and salvation. It was not just a theoretical change, but something that set her heart on fire, awakening in her the desire to seek more wisdom about God and His will. As Zenaide observed Paul's transformation, she realized that faith was not just a concept, but a living force, capable of completely changing a person's life. If a man so radically opposed to Christianity could be touched by grace, what did that mean to her? This reflection led her to question everything she knew, and little by little, her trust in God grew stronger. Her journey of faith was not immediate, but like a seed planted in her heart, which gradually began to grow and bear fruit. And just like Paul, she understood that this faith should be shared and lived in everyday life. The apostles' influence was not limited to words, but translated into actions. Zenaide began to see her own mission in life, not just to believe, but to act. Faith without works is dead, isn't it? And it was this conviction that drove her to follow a unique path, where medicine and spirituality went hand in hand. After all, what's the point of talking about loving others without reaching out to help? This restlessness began to guide her towards a greater purpose, where her vocation would be much more than just a job, but a true calling. Zenaide and her sister Philonia were not only women of faith, but also pioneers in medicine. At a time when science and religion were often at odds, they proved that divine wisdom and human knowledge could go hand in hand. Driven by compassion, they began to study the art of healing, not for their own benefit, but to serve those most in need. Unlike elite doctors who charge a high price for their services, they saw medicine as a calling, a way to manifest God's love on earth. After all, Christ himself healed the sick, and they wanted to follow his example. Faith and medicine, when combined with wisdom, bring unparalleled hope. Imagine a desperate mother, without resources, bringing her sick child and being greeted with a warm smile by these women who did not see their patients as simple clinical cases, but as precious souls. Instead of simply treating symptoms, they cared for people with love and trust in divine providence. The healing was not only physical, but also emotional and spiritual. Often, a word of faith and hope could be as powerful as a medicine, and that was what made their medical practice so revolutionary. Being a doctor was already challenging, let alone being a female doctor. But Zenaide and Philonia faced everything with courage, because they knew they were fulfilling a greater purpose. They did not bow to the limitations imposed by society, because they were fully convinced that wisdom comes from God and that he empowers those he chooses. Each life saved, each patient relieved, was living proof that medicine, when guided by love and faith, can be a reflection of divine care itself. And it was this different perspective that led them to question something even more profound. Not all pain comes from a physical illness. At that time, Any sign of mental suffering was seen as demonic possession. People were afraid, they would move away, or resort to superstitious rituals that often only made the situation worse. But Saint Zenaide, with her unshakable faith and wisdom from God, saw beyond appearances. She realized that some people needed prayer, yes, but others needed medical care and emotional support. Instead of condemning or ignoring, she would reach out, listen, and treat. And this different vision was revolutionary because it brought hope to many who were rejected and marginalized. Imagine a young woman who, tormented by crises of anguish and fear, was seen as someone cursed. In any other situation, she would be chained or expelled from the city. But when she was welcomed by Zenaide, she found something that no one had offered before: understanding and treatment. Some mental illnesses require prayer, but also patience and knowledge. God grants us wisdom so that we can distinguish between what needs to be treated spiritually and what requires medical care. This insight led Zenaide not only to help the sick, but also to educate society, bringing a new way of looking at these issues. She challenged outdated beliefs and paid a price for it. It was not easy to go against a culture based on fear and superstition. But Zenaide knew that true faith is not based on panic, but on trusting God and love for others. With each person she treated, a barrier was broken. With each life restored, the light of truth spread a little further, and her courage did not stop there. In addition to fighting against prejudice, she also faced another great challenge: elitist medicine, which denied treatment to the poorest. While many doctors of the time charged a fortune and denied treatment to the poor, Saint Zenaide and her sister Philonia followed a completely different path. They believed that medicine was a gift from God, and that no one should be deprived of a cure due to lack of money. Thus, they opened their doors to everyone, from the most humble to those rejected by society. With each patient they treated, they demonstrated that true medicine was guided by compassion and not greed. This act of love generated impact and hope, showing that faith and science could go hand in hand. But that was not all. At that time, many superstitious practices dominated popular thought. Sick people were subjected to ineffective rituals, witchcraft, and sacrifices in the hope of a cure that never came. Zenaide not only offered treatment based on medical knowledge, but also fought against these false beliefs, teaching that trust should be in God and not in empty formulas. She showed that true miracles happen through the combination of faith and wisdom, and that God acts both through the supernatural and through the knowledge given to doctors. Of course, not everyone saw this in a positive light. Priests of pagan cults and even influential doctors felt threatened. After all, what would happen if people stopped seeking their rituals and started to trust in medicine combined with faith? Zenaide and Philonia's work began to cause trouble, and opposition grew. But even in the face of threats and persecution, they did not stop. Their commitment to God and to those in need was greater than any fear. What they did not imagine was that the resistance against their work would soon take an even more dangerous turn. The impact of Zenaide and Philonia's work grew, and with it, the anger of those who felt threatened. Pagan doctors who profited from ineffective treatments and priests of ancient religions who exploited the fear of the sick began to conspire against them. The sisters came to be seen as a threat to the established order, for they challenged the authority of those in power. The simple fact that they offered free healing and rejected superstitious practices was a revolutionary act. But what was most disturbing was their unshakable faith in God, which inspired hope and confidence where before there had been only despair. The persecution intensified. Rumors were spread, accusations were made, and the population was incited against them. Until one fateful night, an angry mob surrounded the place where they were working. They were forcibly removed and taken to an unfair trial, where they were accused of blasphemy and witchcraft, a cruel irony for those who had dedicated their lives to fighting superstition. With no chance of defense, they were condemned to death. Brutally stoned, they surrendered their souls to God with unshakable faith. They knew that life did not end there, for they believed in the divine promise that death was not the end, but the beginning of eternity with the Lord. But what the persecutors did not foresee was that their deaths would not erase their legacy. On the contrary, their courage and sacrifice inspired many Christians to remain steadfast in their faith, even under threat. That same cave that had been a refuge for Zenaide and Philonia became a symbol of resistance, a sacred place where many sought strength and spiritual renewal. Something that began as a small flame now became a fire of faith that could not be extinguished. The cave that served as a shelter for Zenaide and Felonia became much more than a simple hiding place. That cold, dark space, which had once been a refuge from persecution, soon became a place of hope and faith for Christians. It was there that those seeking protection and spiritual guidance gathered, remembering the sacrifice of sisters. Every rock, every shadow, seemed to carry the echo of their prayers and the mark of their unshakable trust in God. In times of uncertainty, that place came to symbolize something greater, the strength of those who do not bow down before fear. Pilgrims began to visit the cave, driven by the need to connect with the faith that sustained Zenaide and Felonia until the end. Many who came there were distressed, lost, or weakened by life's hardships. But when they touched those stones, when they felt the atmosphere of holiness that enveloped the place, something changed inside them. It was as if the wisdom and confidence of these women had permeated the environment, serving as fuel to rekindle the faith of those who stepped inside. Just as the psalmist said that God is a refuge and a fortress, that cave became a reminder that, even in times of trouble, there is a safe place for those who trust. What was most impressive was how the sisters' legacy continued to grow. Over time, stories of miracles and transformations began to emerge among those who visited the cave. The sick reported healings, the desperate found comfort, and those who had lost their faith left renewed. Persecution tried to silence them, but ironically, it caused their influence to spread even further. What began as a hiding place now became a beacon for all those seeking more than just answers. They sought a living faith capable of transforming hearts and destinies. The impact of Saints Zenaide and Felonia did not end with their martyrdom. On the contrary, their lives have echoed down through the centuries, influencing both medicine and the Christian view of caring for the sick. At a time when suffering was seen as divine punishment, they showed that faith not only consoles but also acts. Their example encouraged generations of Christian physicians to treat the sick with compassion, trusting that God's wisdom and human knowledge could go hand in hand. The concept that medicine should be a service to others, not a privilege of few, is rooted in the courage of these women. The idea that healing involves more than just the body gains strength with Zenaide's story. Today, we see Christian hospitals and medical missions spread throughout the world, providing free care to those who have no resources. This spirit of dedication and service was born from people like Zenaide, who saw humans suffering through the eyes of faith. Her trust in God did not stop her from studying and perfecting her knowledge, and this balance between science and spirituality continues to be a challenge today. To this day, health professionals who base their faith on her find in her a model of vocation and purpose. In addition to medicine, her life also shaped the way the church views the call to care for those most in need. Her story reinforces a teaching that serving others is serving God Himself. Many Christians, upon learning about her story, feel inspired to take action, whether by helping a sick person, offering a word of hope, or even dedicating themselves to the health field. In the end, what Zenaide left behind was much more than an example. It was an invitation to live an active faith, which is not limited to prayer, but transforms lives through love and compassion. Finishing a learning cycle is a great achievement, but now it's time to turn this knowledge into action. What will you do with everything you've learned about Saint Zenaide and how she combined faith and medicine to impact lives? Have you ever thought about applying this wisdom to your life, or even to your daily practice? What do you think about seeking more of a balance between faith and the actions you take, just like Zenaide did in her time? If this inspired you, share in the comments how you intend to apply this to your routine. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue discovering more about transformative stories that can change your perspective and your life. Let's continue together on this journey of learning, faith, and transformation